Now another gentleman I had, he was in the video too, was Keith Duncan. Terminal lung cancer, both lungs. Breathing down to 70%. When I walked in that first day, he was sitting there with a cigarette in his hand. And he looks at me and he says, "Well, I suppose you're going to tell me to stop this." And I said, "No, Keith." I said, "All that would do is give you more stress." So actually, I think that was the only reason he took the treatment, because he didn't have to stop smoking. So anyway, Keith took the treatment over 90 days. At the end of 90 days, he was in for his tests, both lungs completely clear, his breathing back to 100%, and he smoked 2 packages of cigarettes every day during the treatment. So I found that fairly amazing. Now here just recently too, about a month and a half ago, a young man in Ontario contacted me about his sister dying in the hospital with terminal leukemia, 17-year-old girl. And she was basically at death's door. So they got the treatment, and within 2 days, her white blood cell count had come down by half. It was just amazing. But he called me 31 days from the time she started the treatment. 31 days later, he called me up. He said, my sister was in for her tests. She is cancer-free. She cured her terminal leukemia in 1 month.
Tell them how much she took, Rick.
Pardon me?
Tell them how much she took.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. This little 17-year-old girl, she ate 54 grams of that oil in 31 days. So, that's quite an accomplishment in itself. I don't think I could do it. Now this guy right here, Jim LeBlanc, one of my favorite people. I mean, well, Jim's on the video too, and Jim was dying a couple years back from terminal lymphoma. So, I mean, Jim had had some problems with his heart before, and they wanted to operate, but when they found out that he had terminal lymphoma, well, we're not going to operate on you, go home and die. So, anyway, in the meantime, he came to me, and we got him cured. And a few months later, then the medical system went after him again. They wanted him to go in for the surgery. Excuse me. So Jim asked me, by that time he was terrified of the medical system, and in truth we all should be. But I told him, I said, "Look, Jim," I said, "you're full of oil," and I said, "I don't think they could kill you." So Jim goes in, he has the surgery, and about 2 days later I come to Halifax. I went into the intensive care unit, and Jim was sitting in there, so as soon as I walked in, he lit up like a light bulb. So we were sitting talking for about 10 minutes. He had the stitches all up and down the chest from the open heart surgery. And about that time, these 3 white coats walked in. 2 women and a man, all doctors. So the lady in the middle, she points at Jim and she said, "This is Jim LeBlanc. And he's just gone through open heart surgery and he's done magnificently. And this is the man who cured his terminal cancer with hemp oil." And I'm sitting there like that, and Jim just looked at me because he knew what was coming. And I turned like that and I said, "That's right." And I said, "I'm the guy that makes it, and why aren't you using it?" And you could just see them, they all stiffened, like, "What do I do?" And then the doctor on the end, he steps off to one side like that, and he says, "Well, I'm an anesthesiologist, so I really have nothing to do with this." I'm sitting like that, I said, "Oh," I said, "you're an anesthesiologist, and you don't know that hemp is man's oldest known and safest anesthetic? And that trash you use, that causes brain damage." They run out of the room. Now, Jim was sitting there, and the tears were rolling right down his face. He was trying to hold his chest from the stitches, and he just shook his head. He said, "Rick," he said, "I've never seen anybody like you." He said, "They're terrified of you." But the truth is, I mean, all you got to do is ask the right questions. So that was quite an experience. Another gentleman I worked with here about a year ago, prostate cancer. They wanted to go in. What they were going to do was snip him, go in and put radioactive beads in his prostate. He wasn't allowed to have his grandchildren on his lap because of the radiation. So he knew some people that I had treated. So he went ahead and he made his own oil. And I instructed him over the phone how to do it. So he made the oil, and about 2.5 months later, he asked me to come out to his house one night. So I went out to his house, and we're sitting there talking. And he said, "My God, Rick," he said, "when I sit here and realize what they were going to do to me," he said, his cancer in 2.5 months, his cancer was cured. No more prostate cancer. But he said, "When I think what they were going to do to me," He said, it's unbelievable that people would be so blind to walk into something like this and say, okay, take me and do what you want. And it also cured his arthritis in his shoulders. He works construction work. And so him and his whole family are now big fans of the oil. Another friend of mine, here about a year ago, he went to his doctor and she took his blood tests and everything, and your blood sugar level's at 8.3 or 4 or something like that. You're a diabetic. So you have to know this guy. So he just sat there and laughed at him, because I'd already told him that we could cure diabetes. And well, she found it strange, what would you find funny about having diabetes? So she was kind of looking at him, and she was writing out a prescription. So he told her, he said, I'm not going to take your prescription. He said, I'm going to take Rick's oil. And she told him right there, she said, you're a diabetic. There's no cure for diabetes. You come back here in a few months and be tested. If you don't go on the medication, you're going to have problems. So he did. He went back about 3 months later for his test. He was 4.2.
Nice.
No more diabetes. So how much trust can you put in these white coats? I mean, I've tried to rationalize myself how these doctors can do what they do. How do doctors that work at the Isaac Walton and see these little children with tumors and all these diseases, and they're giving these little toddlers poison? Do they not know what chemotherapy is? Of course they do. But they can live with themselves. I'll tell you, if it was me, I couldn't. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror if I was killing children. But that's our system. Let's see. Now I'd like to show you a short clip from what Bob Malamede has put up on the internet on YouTube. Bob is a PhD out of Colorado, and he teaches at the University of Colorado. He's an expert on the effects of hemp medicine in the human body. Bob has also testified as an expert on hemp in many court cases. This man knows what he is talking about, and his views back up everything I have been telling the public about this medication. Right after this short video, we will go into the question and answer segment of this seminar. Then there will be a short break, followed by the greatest hemp documentary ever made, Jack Herer's Emperor of Hemp, made in 1999. I would strongly suggest to anyone looking for knowledge about the hemp plant to read Jack Herer's book. Let's see, I've got a copy right here. Wonderful book. The Emperor Wears No Clothes. Jack brought everything the government was trying to hide from the public. Jack brought it all back in 1985. And for that, the man deserves a medal. And of course, like I said, read the book, and by all means, if you can't stay for the documentary today, for God's sakes, take a look at The Emperor of Hemp. It is spectacular. Jack and I are personal friends, and I am so proud to have come to know this wonderful human being.
For the last 33 days, or 34 days, I can't remember. I've been taking Rick Simpson's oil. He believes it's the cure-all for everybody in the world. Cancer. 200 other things from MS to every type of disease you can name. I've been in this researching all elements of cannabis for 35 years. And I have never seen something like this. In the first 4 or 5 days, I felt better. Now I'm feeling 10, 15, 20, this each and every minute. I'm a diabetic. I have 50,000 cuts on my thing. They all healed up in 4 days.
Now let's proceed with Bob's YouTube clips, and then we'll get into the question and answers.